Hello again, Steve here. Now, you may be aware that that I do a little bit of coaching with an organization called Toastmasters, primarily on the level of the club, to help out clubs. I've done a few of them, and it's a very rewarding thing to be able to see people rise to the expectations that they want to be at, which is what I really want to talk about here. I did this presentation a couple of nights ago at a couple of different clubs. It was called Customization for Expectations. And this can relate a lot to how it is that we deal with people. You know, if somebody's got a business or an organization or whatever it is, whenever people come in contact with us or come in contact with our businesses, they probably have an expectation that it be a positive experience. And not many people go out in life and want to drive their head into the brick wall kind of thing, right? Most people, when they set out to do something in life, they want it to be a positive experience. So if they show up at our store, say hello in the checkout line, they interact with us in some way, it's probably for the hope that, in their mind, that it would be a positive outcome, right? The thing is that a lot of times it's not. I mean, that's the nature of life. Lots of things that we do are not a positive outcome, and we make a choice whether, but we're probably not going to deal with that anymore. We'd rather avoid it. Now, but if we, as people who want people to deal with us through business, through our organizations, through our friendship groups or whatever it is, if we wish for people to have a positive, if we wish for people to have their expectations to be positively met, then we might have to customize in some ways for that. And I use the example of a Toastmasters club because anybody who walks in the door of a club to visit is probably coming there because they want to learn something. And if they find it to be overwhelming, then they might turn around and leave. Now, in this presentation, I started out with a rather silly analogy of me there on top. I laid on top of a table, and I took a broomstick, and I started pushing it as though I was pushing weights. And I was grunting and groaning, and all of a sudden the bar comes down on my throat, and I pretend to injure myself and fall off the bench. And the point being there that we can injure ourselves when we go out to try to strengthen ourselves, right? When we join some kind of a club, we join or we get involved in a relationship, whatever it is, if it's overloading for us, it can freak us out and we run the other way. In fact, we don't actually, we go backwards on our expectations. In the example of me going to the gym, I went to the gym in this persona, as I was displaying it, as this cocksure kind of guy who was going to go in there and get strong. And as a result, I injure myself. So now no longer can I even go there. I have to stay at home for a while healing and maybe not ever go back. So my foolishness actually made it worse than that. And the same with going in life when we step out to the threshold of our strength. If we go beyond that, we may overstress ourselves. So there's two kinds of stress. As you know, there's distress can actually harm us, and eustress can actually grow us. So stress is important, but the question is how much stress. I told a story about this guy, Gabor Mate. Some of you know him. He's written a book called The Realm of Hungry Ghosts, wherein he talks about how, well, not in that book, and maybe he didn't talk about it in that book, but I watched a video of him one time, and he was talking about this guy he was helping to get comfortable enough anyways to go in an elevator because he had a phobia of elevators. Anybody had to use an elevator. So what he did is he said, okay, do you think it'd be okay if you and I go together to that elevator, but we stand on the other side of the hallway and just watch the elevator for a while? And the guy, you know, his client, Dr. Gabor Mate's client, could probably understand intellectually that the elevator was not actually eating those people who went into it. He could probably understand that because he could see the door opening and people coming out. But the problem is the subconscious mind can have such an amazing effect on the body that he could potentially injure himself by fainting if he actually went in there without going to the threshold and getting stronger. So he was okay with standing on the other side of the hallway, and they stood there and watched it for a while, and then they went home. Next time, is it okay if we stand beside the elevator and you could watch me walk into it and walk out again? Would you be okay with that? Okay. So little baby steps, right? It's like when you go to the gym and you got that pin and you pull it out and you put it to the next notch once you get strong enough to lift the previous ones. And then finally, the doctor was able to hold the door. The man could walk into the elevator and walk back out again, and they'd go home. And finally, they were able to ride the elevator. You see, step by step by step. And the other thing I brought up there was I played a clip of the King's Speech, that movie, that famous movie, The King's Speech. I think it was King George VI, I believe, who, you know, had ascended to the throne, not of his own volition, not that they ever do, but it was basically because his brother, for some reason, had screwed up or whatever. He didn't qualify somehow. So this guy, King George VI, he was supposed to be the king, but it was, you know, there was coming on to wartime, and he had to give this speech, but he couldn't speak publicly because he had this terrible speech impediment, and he was very nervous. So his wife finds him a helper, just like in the Good Doctor, you know, Dr. Maté with the guy with the elevator, found him a helper who could help him take step by step by step. And you can see in the movie, while he's actually doing the speech, his helper is there, his mentor, talking him through and helping him to relax, adjusting that pin on the weight machine, if you will, gradually and little by little as he got through. And when he stumbled, just like the person who's spotting, the weightlifter will take a little bit of that load for a moment, and he got through it. You know, and we all probably have our thresholds, you know, like the guy with the elevator and like the king. We all have our threshold. We're all at different levels, but we want to at times push past those barriers. So sometimes we have to customize where it is that we are and adjust and feel out where that pin level is. And we did this in the meeting that I gave this. The point of it was to actually have a teaching point afterwards. And there was a guy in the club who was struggling with impromptu speaking, just standing up in the club and being given a random question which he wasn't familiar with and being able to talk about that straight through for 2 minutes. Very much of a challenge. He'd freeze up and have to sit down. So with a little bit of prior discussion that he was okay that we actually work on this together in the club, and with setting the club up for it as well, saying, hey, you know what, we're going to try this, everybody be in support of this guy. We found out that there was different elements within that exercise which were beyond his comfort zone. They were things like stepping into the elevator, and they were things like standing up. They were things like looking around. They were things like getting a random question that he didn't know anything about. So he said, okay, how about if you can sit down? How about you only just look at the person who asked you the question? How about you're given a question that you're very familiar with? You don't know the question ahead of time, but at least it's a topic that you're familiar with. How about that? So he tried that, and that was like stepping back by the wall. And somebody sat beside him who could help him out if there was a challenge. And he was able to take that topic and go right through for 2 minutes and more. Very well organized, very successful. What can we learn from this then? I think there's a lot we can learn from it. I think there's a learning point for us as people who would want people to come to participate with what we're doing, in terms of helping them maybe to customize, to find out what it is that they want, and presenting it in such a way that it's acceptable. It's a low enough of a weight, if you will, for them to be it's customized for them. And also for ourselves, when we approach life, if we're aware that we all have our thresholds beyond which we're extremely uncomfortable to the point where it can actually injure us, either physically, mentally, or emotionally, and cause us to get the hell out of there and be somewhat injured so that we don't want to go back, and therefore not approach that threshold again. But to find out where that threshold is and challenge ourselves in that eustress, that helpful stress zone. And from there, we can grow in our lives, become more confident, become more skillful at what it is that we want. Well, hopefully this is helpful anyways. That's, I think, a conversation that I wanted to share out there anyways. So, Steve here, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.